Hi everyone, I'm Giorgi. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm many things, but this one is the closest to my heart. So I'm here today to talk to you about self-leadership. Um, when I was growing up in this environment in Georgia, we were taught to basically survive, not thrive. Uh, we were taught to build up walls, to not let people in, to not change our opinion, to stay very tough and very strong all of the time, to stay rigid and to think of people as our enemies and as people who are competing with us. We were told not to negotiate with the world no matter what, okay? And I was doing a really good job at that. I was in survival mode and everything seemed to be going really well. But what nobody had taught me was a relationship with myself. How to handle not the world, not the others, but the relationship with my own self. When myself came knocking with the moods, I would always respond with giving up. When myself came to me and said that they were tired, in a bad mood, they didn't want to study, they didn't want to go to the gym, I'll start tomorrow, I'll start on Monday, I will start next week, next year, whatever, right? I always gave in, I always gave up, and I always said, yes, sure, you're the boss, right? So the problem here is that yourself is not always right, okay? And let me explain. First of all, we need to understand which version of ourselves are we listening to. Turns out there are many versions of ourselves across time, but the three of them that are the most important ones are yourself from the past, yourself from the present, the one that is sitting in this room right here, and the one from the future. So your past self, your current self, and your future self. Turns out when you're giving up, you're talking to yourself from the past. And the reason you're listening to your past self is the emotions. You are listening because your past self is appealing to your emotions. And they're saying that you are going to feel comfortable and pleasured. Okay? If you listen to me, you're going to feel comfort and pleasure. And these are the two things that our minds give up to. So why the emotions, right? And why do we give up all the time? Because our minds are trained to respond to the emotions immediately. This is why we need to have a motivation to get out of the bed every morning, to do anything, to achieve anything in our lives. When we do not have motivation, we are lost and we cannot act, we cannot achieve anything most of the time. Okay, let me ask you this. Who needs motivation? Nobody. You don't need motivation to achieve anything. And I'll tell you how, right? When your past self comes knocking, you do not need to negotiate with it. Your self-leadership starts when you stop to negotiate with your past self and when you start to act on behalf of your future self, which is watching, by the way, and is very pissed off because you are listening to yourself from the past. Okay, so in order to act and not give in to emotions, we need discipline, right? And what is discipline, by the way? Can anyone tell me? How would you define discipline?
It's, I think, where motivation doesn't work, it's no need anymore. Discipline is, I think, where you have to do it automatically
Right, you have to do it automatically, right? Yeah, thank you.
I was saying commitment.
Commitment, right. And both of you are very close.
It's not really a definition, but more of an example, like getting your task done regardless of how you feel or regardless of what's put in front of you.
Right, thank you. So, to sum it up, all of you are right, but I have my own definition. And it's not my own only. I've heard this many times over the last 20 years in my career. So, your discipline is your way of loving your future self. When you have discipline, you love and respect yourself from the future. This is why you're acting, right? The reason for your actions should be your future self, not yourself from the past. Your past self has no discipline whatsoever. And your past self does not act in your own best interest. Okay, going back to discipline. So if discipline is self-love or love of your future self, how do we get there, right? How do we get there? Turns out that in order to love yourself, if you do not already, you need to change quite a few things. And I've heard other speakers say here about, changing mindset and all. Everybody was very close. But you have to ask yourself the question of who do you want your future self to be in terms of your values, your principles, your character, and aim for the higher part, okay? Also, what your competence needs to be in the future. What do you want to be able to do as a competent or a professional person? And what do you want to share or give to the world, right? In other words, to sum it up, what does your mission have to be in the future so you can rely on your mission and not your mood or your past self? Once you understand your own mission, there is one more step left. You have to turn that into everyday actions. And the best way to turn your discipline and your emotions and your actions and anything into everyday steps is your habits, right? So, all of us in this room are breathing right now. It's impossible to live without it, right? Do you need motivation to breathe? Why do you not need motivation to breathe? I've heard a lot of no's. The reason you don't need a motivation is that your body has found out that you cannot survive without inhaling air and exhaling carbon dioxide and nitrogen and all these things, right? In other words, your body is in the habit of breathing every second of every minute, every day, right? This is the same way that you can use to train your mind to get into the habit of acting. Getting into the habit of not giving into your emotions, but actually, being led by your mission. And when you have a big mission that is bigger than yourself, bigger than all of us, maybe bigger than this world, right? Then you can lead yourself towards that future, towards that character, towards that competence, towards that mission in general, right? So, my message to you today is stop negotiating and start acting. Thank you.